this presentation. I actually changed the presentation a little bit to address all your questions. If you feel for some reason I didn't address them, raise your hand at the very end. We're going to have time for question and answer. Let me know, Christina, you forgot my question. There was even one that didn't fit into anything. I still addressed it up here, okay? So it's my pleasure to do that. And I'm going to just go ahead and get started while the PowerPoint is going up. What's a presentation without technical difficulties? How many of you guys have seen bullying happen, been bullied, or bullied someone else? Raise your hand. Okay, now put your hands down. Raise your hand if you've never seen bullying happen, never been a bully, or never had bullying happen to you. Okay, so no one raised their hand, but some people forgot to raise their hand the first time I asked that. So this is a topic that affects every single person in this room. And at one point during one of the slides, I'm going to address an instance of bullying I experienced when I was in 5th grade. And don't worry, it happened after that, but the earliest one I remember was in 5th grade. So what is bullying? That's a fantastic question. Just so we can all get on the same page, we can take a look at this. If you're like, Christina, it's the weekend, I don't want to read, don't make me read any of the slides, and there's so many words on your slides, then I just highlighted some. They're either in bold or they're in caps on different slides, so you can just read the bullet points if you don't want your eyes to get tired. I totally understand that. So bullying is unwanted, something you do not want, aggressive, so something that comes at you pretty forcefully, behavior among school-age children, you guys are school-age children, that involves a real or perceived power imbalance. Christine, I don't know what perceived means. That's okay. Perceived means imaginary. So the bully is going to the victim thinking that there's some power difference. Either I'm better than you or you're better than me. Either way, that is a power imbalance. So it's either real or imaginary or perceived, okay? The behavior is repeated over time or has the potential to be repeated over time. If it happens once, it could be an act of bullying, but that's not what we usually call bullying. So it's really important to get this down because throughout the presentation, I'm going to kind of be hinting at unwanted aggressive behavior, power imbalance, and repeated over time. One of the questions was, can you bully yourself? And the answer is no, you can't bully yourself, but there are ways where you have low self-esteem and you continue that low self-esteem. Toward the end of the presentation, we're going to really focus on self-esteem. You also see something at the very bottom. It might be hard to read. It says stopbullying.gov. That just means I got my information from somewhere. I didn't just make it up. So whenever you see something at the bottom, that means I took it from somewhere, or I forgot to put it on, or I just wrote it from my experience. So statistics related to bullying. 100% of you said that you were somehow involved in bullying, except when people were surveyed, they didn't answer as honestly, I think. So again, I know it's a lot of words. I'll totally explain it. One report that came out in 2015 said that about 25%, or specifically 22% of kids were bullied. They actually had bullying happen to themselves. In another report on another website that I looked up, said 75% of kids were being bullied. So again, I didn't make the distinction when I asked you how many of you have been bullied versus how many of you have been the bully. So maybe if I asked it a little differently, it would have been a little bit less, but the point is this affects almost everyone. And I would encourage you that if you're going to be surveyed to answer honestly, because that's super important. Bullying rates are highest in middle school. I'm happy to see that there are many middle schoolers here, but do know that rates are highest right now and will go down about 14% while you're in 12th grade. So it's really the roughest during middle school. So keep that in mind, like, oh my gosh, this is going to last forever. No, it's not going to last forever, and we're going to talk about ways to manage it, okay? I also just, I broke down the different percentages, 14 and 13%, were made fun of, called names, insulted, or had rumors spread about them. That's really the bulk of the bullying. The rest, yes, cyberbullying, push-shoved, excluded, threatened, all that stuff still happens, but the ones that happen the most often are people being called names, insulted, rumors spread about them. So there are 3 main types of bullying, and if you notice, you're like, oh, Christina, cyberbullying happens all the time on Instagram, Snapchat, whatever you guys use these days, right? Are there any other huge ones that I need to know about? No? Okay, thanks. Guys, keep me in the loop. I want to know this stuff. So 3 main types of bullying. Again, cyberbullying is not here because cyberbullying is a combination of both verbal and social. So if this is too academic, I apologize. I just really want to break it down for you so that we all really have a really good understanding of what bullying is. So verbal, saying or writing mean things. You know, if someone, teases or name calls, inappropriate sexual comments, taunting, threatening to cause harm. The type of bullying I experienced when I was in 5th grade was, obviously I'm Egyptian. So this guy used to call me camel jockey. And I don't even know what that means, but whatever. And so I'd go to my mom and be like, Mom, this guy's calling me camel jockey. I don't know what it means. She's like, oh, NC, like it's not a big deal. But to me it was a big deal because he was calling me something that had to do with my race and something that I had no idea what he was saying. And we didn't have cell phones back then. I'm like not even joking. We didn't have cell phones back then and I was in 5th grade. I don't know how many 5th graders have cell phones, but they didn't even exist. So it was the house phone. This guy got a hold of my house phone number and would call and ask for Christina. And if you guys can imagine having a house phone and you have an Egyptian father and you get a call from a boy, not only are you dead at that point, but the guy is calling to bully me, right? He's calling to say, hey, can I talk to Christina? And then I'd pick up like, hello, who is this? And he'd be like, hey, camel jockey. And I'm like, I don't even know what that means. So I was reacting and I was like annoyed and like, why is this guy calling me this? But anyway, that's just another topic. Some of you you understood the reference to the house phone ringing and do you guys understand that reference? You do? Okay, just making sure. And Dad picks up, that would be lovely. Or Mom, I don't know which one's more strict in your household. Anyway, so that's one type of verbal bullying. Now, social is hurting someone's reputation or relationships. So leaving someone out on purpose, all these girls go out to a birthday party and they take a picture and they post it on Snapchat and you're like, oh my gosh, how come I wasn't invited or how come I wasn't there? That could be a type of bullying. Telling children who not to be friends with, this used to happen all the time, again in 5th grade. Maybe I went to a Catholic school in 5th grade, it's supposed to be like a good school. Still happened where, bullying was there, excluding people was there. And I think this might be one of the ones we all feel, boys and girls. Verbal is more for girls and physical is more for boys, and social I think is for both. Spreading rumors about someone, so making untrue things up, or even just talking about someone excessively, that's not really nice. And embarrassing someone in public, like, hey loser, like ha 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 ha, that's social bullying. And then physical is pretty obvious, hitting, kicking, slapping, spitting, pushing, breaking someone's stuff, slamming them against a locker, or making rude hand gestures. If you don't know what that means, giving someone the middle finger or doing other rude gestures. Does this make sense so far? We're all on the same page? Okay, great. So I did say this. Does anyone remember the answer? What type of bullying do boys experience? I said this quickly. Physical, very good. See, you see these 2 pictures are physical? Oh, you can't see it as well. What about girls? Verbal, yeah, and social, yes. Social works too. Mostly verbal, name calling, spreading rumors, commenting on pictures. Not nice things. Okay, so so many words. I understand. If you don't want to look at it, no problem. Who's at risk of being bullied? A lot of you asked, why do certain people get bullied? One question in particular asked, why do poor people only get bullied? So I want to address that as well. So there's something called risk factors. This means if you have this specific risk factor, you are at risk of something happening to you. So I don't know, how many of you want to be a doctor in the future? Okay, so I'm going to say something just to the future doctors in the room. So you guys know what diabetes is? Have you heard of diabetes? Okay, so one risk factor, this doesn't mean like one risk factor is being overweight. So your weight is too much. If you're overweight, that's a risk factor for diabetes. Does that mean every single overweight person will get diabetes? No. No, but it is a risk factor. It's more likely to happen if you have if you are overweight in addition to other risk factors. So the risk factors for being bullied are here. So if you're different from your peers, how many of us are different from our peers? And every single person should be raising their hand. Why? Because we're not Vietnamese, we're not Hispanic, and we're not white. We're automatically different, right? We are very different. I was very conscious of my difference because I was the only ethnic person. You know, everyone else was Vietnamese, Hispanic, or white growing up. And then I went to a school where I think 90% of the people were white. I suppose if I was African American, that would have also made a very significant difference to me. So other differences involve being overweight or underweight, which really is very many people, wearing glasses or different clothing, being new to a school, so you're different, you don't fit in the in crowd, and not being able to afford what other kids consider cool. So I know Vans are really big, or Converse is really big. In my day, it was Nike and Jordan shoes. I don't know if you guys know who Michael Jordan is, but, excuse me? What'd you say? Okay. So not being able to afford what others consider cool. So maybe that's why the person who wrote the question, why are poor people bullied? It's not really that poor people are being targeted. It's just that some kids have defined a certain thing as being cool, and when that is not being met, then they are automatically targeted for bullying. When people appear weak or unable to defend themselves, you know, even just body posture, like if you see someone standing like this versus, you know, more confident, who's more likely to get bullied, do you think? It's on the, huh? Yeah, the one who has slouching posture, the one who appears weaker. Kids who are depressed, anxious, or have low self-esteem, again, we're gonna talk a whole lot about self-esteem, but depressed is feeling really sad most of the time, not doing normal things that other kids do. And anxious is worrying and just like kind of concerned all the time, like, oh my gosh, like something on my face, oh my gosh, is my hair too short, oh my gosh, are my jeans okay, whatever. You're just anxious, you're constantly preoccupied with what's going on. I just want to check in, is everyone so far so good? All right, awesome. Kids who appear less popular or have less friends, so if you don't have as many friends, yeah, it's a risk factor for being bullied. And then kids who are annoying. How many of you have an annoying kid in your class? Okay. That kid is likely to be bullied. Maybe, I don't know, maybe you guys are the annoying one. I hope not, but I can ask your Sunday school teachers about that later. So kids who are annoying or just trying to constantly get attention, they're gonna be bullied. Like, stop it, you loser. I keep saying loser because I don't want to use other offensive language in the actual church. So keep that in mind. That's going to be my go-to. And you're like, Christina, people don't talk like that. I know they don't talk like that. They say much worse things. And then does bullying, you think, happen more to boys or to girls? I got both answers, and both answers are correct. Yeah, you read ahead. Yes, it happens equally. I know sometimes it feels like it's more, a lot of the girls said girls and the boys said boys. So it happens because you experience it, right? Or you at least see it. Just because, again, you have these risk factors, just because you are overweight doesn't mean you're going to develop diabetes, but you are at risk for it. Of course, the more risk factors you have, the more prone you are to being bullied. Alrighty, so who's likely to bully others? Is it the popular kids or the not so popular kids? Popular kids are more likely to bully? Okay, research says both. Huh? They do that to each other. Yeah, even friends bully each other. That's not too nice, huh? So kids likely to bully others is actually both. There are two types of kids. The well-connected popular ones who are really trying to protect their popular status, which, by the way, once you leave middle school and high school, nobody cares. Nobody cares. I graduated high school over 10 years ago. Where are these popular kids? They're not Isolated from peers. So those who are not very well connected, that kid that, is slouching and doesn't look like he, takes too much pride in himself, that kiddo is also likely to bully others. So maybe if they are depressed, anxious, or less involved. Okay? So now we're learning that, I'm going to go back one, that there are so many risk factors. So I think at least one of us identifies with maybe at least one of these risk factors. Don't freak out. I'm not saying on Monday morning you're going to be bullied, or all through the summer, or next year when you go to high school you're going to be bullied. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying these are things to be mindful of. And if you're either well-connected or isolated, you're likely to bully, which is, again, everyone. Does that mean if you're popular or not popular you're going to bully? No, it doesn't mean that. It's just to educate you and give you an idea. Okay, so this was the most popular question that I got, and I have the questions. You remember the questions you wrote down? I would say about half of you wrote this question down. Why do people bully others? And I want to hear from you. Why do you guys think people bully other people? I'm going to go like this. The bullies are insecure, maybe. Excellent answer. There's other stuff going on with their life. It's like you guys saw my slides before. Because of where you're from? Okay, can you give me an example? Okay, I'm going to hear that one, and then I'm going to come to you in the front. Yes? The gentleman behind you. Because they're jealous? Yeah, that could be true. I'm going to get hers and then come to you. You were going to say that. Okay, it still counts. To get power. Oh my gosh, you remember the first slide about the power imbalance. Yes. Any other ideas as to why people bully others? Feel better about themselves, so maybe they have some low self-esteem. They want to look cool. Do you think bullies actually look cool? They just don't like you. Okay, they've targeted you and like, I don't like you, I don't like the color orange, so. They're getting bullied by their siblings. Excellent. I like that you brought family into it. Feel bad about themselves. Again, that's very similar to the low self-esteem, but also valid. Yes? Yeah. Mad, so they take it out on you. So they don't know how to deal with their emotions, so they're expressing their emotions on someone else. Very good. You guys should have just written this PowerPoint. So let's find out. I didn't highlight any on this slide because I think they're all really important. So who's at risk of being a bully? Those who are aggressive or easily frustrated. Again, someone over here I remember pointing, don't know how to manage their emotions well. So they're aggressive and they're angry and frustrated, and maybe they got a bad grade, or maybe, again, the next one, something's going on at home. This one is huge. This one's a really big one. So when their parents aren't really involved in their lives, I'm seeing some parents out here in the crowd, the importance of being in your kid's life is tremendous. It could be the difference of them being a bully or not a bully. So please keep that in mind and be involved. And kids, you're like, no, I don't want my parent involved in my life. Well, do you want to be a bully and do you want to get bullied? No, it might be worth having mom and dad, in your business. Or having issues at home. This might be sensitive for some of us, but I'm going to say it anyway because it has to be talked about. Sometimes when mom and dad fight, assuming that mom and dad are both in the home, sometimes when mom and dad fight, they don't know how to fight well. And they just yell at each other. Maybe they hit each other, throw things to each other, ask the other one to leave the house, whatever it is. Again, I know this might bring up some stuff for you, and I don't mean to make you uncomfortable, but I just want to highlight. Sometimes when that happens, we don't know how to manage our emotions. So sometimes we cry unexpectedly, sometimes we are angry or frustrated, and we take it out inappropriately, and that's because things are going on around that we can't control. We truly can't control it. But just know that sometimes when parents aren't getting along, that does affect the kids, and that could be you guys, and that could not be you guys. So when kiddos think badly about themselves, when they think they're not good enough, and we're going to get to this during the self-esteem. So when you just don't think you're good enough, or when you feel badly about yourself, someone did say that. I can't remember who. Did you? Okay, thanks. When they have difficulty following rules, and this could be either because cognitively, like in their brain, they truly don't know how to follow rules, or it could be because they just don't want to. Whatever, not going to do it. I run the show. That's not really the case, that you run the show unless you want a suspension or an expulsion. You guys know what that is? People get, or detention. Do you guys have detention these days? Saturday school? All that stuff? Okay. When they view violence in a positive way, some kids grow up thinking that violence is normal for several reasons, some of which is they see it on TV, they play video games that are violent, their parents are violent toward each other, and they see violence at school. Or, on a bigger scale, violence of school shootings, right? Speaking of school shootings, they say that the study that I read, they identified 15 school shootings. About 12 of those kids who were homicidal, who actually did the killing, were bullied at some point. And so they did the ultimate act of bullying, which is, taking someone's life. So they could view violence in a positive way. Or they have friends that bully others. And there were some other ones that you guys said, which were all excellent. Anyone have anything to comment about this slide? I know we went through a lot. No? Okay, if you decide that you want to ask later or you want to write it down, we'll be taking questions at the end. You guys are doing a really good job, by the way. I'm proud of you. So signs a kid is being... This kid in the front, I have to show you. Only I thought that was funny. I got you. So signs a kid is being bullied. This is more for the parents to look out and Sunday school servants, but it's also good for you to know that your peers might be bullied if there are unexplainable injuries. Stuff is getting stolen or destroyed. The big thing, phones being stolen. I actually had one of my Sunday school kids, just last week he got his phone stolen, which is really unfortunate. I'm trying to figure out if it was an act of bullying or if someone just really wanted electronics. Headaches, stomach aches, feeling sick or faking sick. So when your body doesn't feel too well, that's a sign that someone could be bullied. And then the next 4 or 5 are actually symptoms of depression. Remember I said depression, anxiety, low self-esteem. We'll talk about that later. This slide talks a lot about depression. And I'm not saying, oh my gosh, I'm so depressed, I'm sleeping, I don't want to get out of bed, depression. I'm talking about someone who really does not participate in activities like they used to. Changes in eating habits, skipping meals, or binge eating. Binge eating is eating too much, more than our body needs. Difficulty sleeping, so either sleeping too much, sleeping too little, or having lots of nightmares. Low grades, not being interested in school. I get it, sometimes we're just not interested in school, but I'm talking about not going to school at all. Sudden loss of friends or avoiding social situations. So if some of you guys see that someone is just completely isolated, they're away, they no longer want to be involved with friends, keep that in mind. Maybe they are being bullied and they're not sharing that with you. So it's good if you see some of these signs, ask your friend, hey, is everything cool? Everything with kids at school, everything at home okay? Check in with your friend. That's something you can do. Feeling helpless. Helplessness is going to come up again, but helplessness and hopeless are the two main things associated with suicide. And then speaking of suicide, self-destructive behaviors like running away, hurting yourself, or talking about suicide could also be, risk factors that someone is being bullied. Okay, so someone asked, what advice do you have for someone who's experiencing suicidal thoughts? And then in parentheses they put, sorry, it's not related. But it actually is related, so I'm glad you brought it up, and I added this slide after I saw that. So we're going to take a little bit of a break from bullying and self-esteem, and we're going to focus a little bit about suicide. How many of you have heard anything about suicide in the church before? Like a talk on suicide? No, has a Sunday school servant or Abuna or anyone talked to you about suicide, about the topic? Okay, so I'm bringing this up because no one talks about it. There are so many topics that we don't talk about that are extremely important and extremely prevalent. Prevalent means that it's really happening. How many of you have had any suicide happen in your school? Okay, I have a few. How many of you have heard of a suicide happening to a Coptic person? Okay. And how many of you have heard of suicide happening ever? Okay, if you read your Bible, then your hand should be raised. So let's talk about some warning signs, and then I'm going to give you some advice. So if people are talking about killing themselves, feeling hopeless, hopelessness is the number one feeling associated with suicide. If there's one thing you take from this slide, it's hopelessness. But just because you are hopeless doesn't mean you're going to take your life. But other talking points of suicide is someone feeling that they have no reason to live, feeling that they hate their lives, feeling like they're too much on other people, feeling trapped, or they experience unbearable pain. So a pain that's super, super intense. Behaviors associated with suicide are looking for ways to end your life, actively researching that, not being as involved in activities, isolating, which is taking yourself away from a situation, changes in sleep, saying bye to friends and family or writing a suicide note, giving things away, so valuables, things that are very important to them. Here you can have this because they're preparing for their departure. Aggression and fatigue. Fatigue means tiredness. Increased use of alcohol or drugs. So those are some behaviors to look out for if you were a friend or a sibling is going through that. And then mood means just how you're feeling. So if they're depressed, if they're anxious, if they're not really interested in anything, if they're irritable. So do you guys know what irritable means? Okay, very good. Humiliation or shame, when someone's making fun of them or they feel ashamed. Agitation or anger. And then relief or sudden improvement. Someone's been so depressed and really down, and all of a sudden they're chipper and they're okay. That's something you're like, oh, that's a good thing, they're happy now. No, they might just really have accepted that they're going to take their life tomorrow. So keep these things in mind. My number one piece of advice is identify how you can be hopeful. And I'm glad all of you are here in the church because the church is hope and Christ is hope. He gave us hope. And he is hope. So identify how you can be hopeful. I'll be right with you. I want you to think about this is not going to be forever. How you're feeling now is not forever. And then suicide is have you guys heard this talk? Suicide is a permanent solution to a temporary problem. You guys heard that? Okay, now you heard it. Suicide is a permanent solution to a temporary problem. Problems can be fixed. If not, problems can be worked out. Okay? So I really want you to remain hopeful and talk to someone. That's super important. If you are feeling suicidal, you want to take your life, if you feel like you don't really belong here and there's no place for you to fit in, please talk to someone. If you have no one, I'm volunteering. Okay? Everyone's your witness. What was your question? No question? Okay. So we're going to go for about 10-ish more minutes. Okay, so effects of bullying. We talked a lot about bullying. How many of you are like bullied out? Like, oh my gosh, too much bullying. Because we only have a few more slides. I'm bullied out, I think, just from preparing this. Because I'm really excited about the self-esteem part. That's my favorite. So kids who are bullied are most likely to experience depression, anxiety. How many times have I said depression, anxiety so far? A lot. There's a reason for it. I want you to pay attention if you have these feelings or if you see these feelings in other people. Feelings of sadness, loneliness, changes in sleep or eating. These are, again, symptoms of depression. Loss of interest in activities that they used to enjoy. Health complaints, we talked about that, remember, headaches, stomach aches, like I'm not really feeling too good. Decreased academic achievement. I'm sorry this is written like a teacher, but like when you have lower GPA or you're not doing as well on some of your tests or scoring well. And then I want to get a little bit into cyberbullying. Bullied kids, the effects are thoughts of suicide and social problems. How many of you have seen, either on your own Snapchat or Insta, cyberbullying happening? I'm talking something as, oh my gosh, almost all of you. I'm talking about something as simple as, oh my gosh, you're so ugly, when they post a selfie. So these are some effects. Yeah, do you have a comment you want to share? Okay. I'm going to get into this a little bit more just because cyberbullying happens so often. And again, my favorite thing, depression, anxiety, shoots up with cyberbullying and any use of social media. And you're like, oh my gosh, another talk where we have to delete Insta and Snapchat. No, it's not one of those talks. I'm just going to educate you about some of the feelings associated with time spent on social media. That's all I'm going to do is educate you. You can choose to do what you want for yourselves. So why don't kids ask for help? I was going to remove the slide, but it's right in front of you. Absolutely. And I'm going to give you credit for that, even though it's up on the board, because you came up with that so fast. People are afraid that no one will understand what they're going through. How many of you, not related to bullying, how many of you have felt something like, oh my gosh, if I tell someone, they're just not going to understand? How many of you have felt that way? I felt that way, so I'm raising my hand. Someone's just not going to understand what I'm going through. And some of you do. You feel like people will understand everything you say? No? Okay, you're comfy and you don't want to raise your hand? Okay. So why don't kids ask for help? That was an excellent answer. But before we get into that, how many kids do you think are likely to report bullying? Like if I had 4 kids, how many of the 4 are likely to come up to me and tell me something's happening? Huh? 1. You guys are so good. Yeah, 22%, which is really close to 25%, which is 1/4. So very, very, very good. If you had to choose, who's most likely to report that bullying is happening? Elementary school, middle school, or high school? Okay, no one said high school. Good, because that's not the right answer. The answer is elementary school, and I heard a couple here. So little kids, they see wrong, and they report wrong. So good for them. Middle school and high school, whatever. It's happening to everyone else. Happened to me, and I didn't do anything about it, so whatever. That's not necessarily the right mentality. So bullying, the reason people don't seek help is because children feel helpless. You know, they want to feel in control, and if I go tell an adult, they're going to be in control, and they're going to take care of everything. I want to be in control, so I'm not going to say anything, and I'm going to take care of the bully myself. That's why they don't ask for help. They also don't want to be called a snitch. Snitches get stitches, stuff like that. Is that what you're going to say? Huh? Oh, yes. What do you have to say? Okay, so you're talking about a pattern of bullying that never stops? Okay, we're going to address that. Okay. So they make fun of them for trying to get help. Yeah, that could be it. And so kids may fear backlash, so they might feel like, oh my gosh, I'm going to keep getting bullied if I tell on this bully. Well, that doesn't make sense. You're going to get bullied either way. You might as well just try to tell on them and see what happens. They might feel embarrassed to admit that they're being bullied, meaning that they've been a target. That can be embarrassing. Feeling like no one cares. And if you feel like no one cares, you're just going to not talk to people and go away. Remember what I said about suicide? Talk to someone. So if you talk to someone, usually that's better. More hands on deck is better than no hands on deck, right? Keep that in mind. And a lot of kids with cyberbullying feel like they might get their phones taken away. That's not necessarily true. Just because it's happening through your app doesn't mean that's okay. But I am going to give you a tip. If you are being cyberbullied, again, we're going to get to this later, don't respond. Christina, they're saying so many awful things about me, and they're making fun of me and my Christianity and this, and that. Don't respond. Instead, screenshot the situation. Screenshot it. You guys know how to screenshot on your phone? Don't send it to the whole school. Just screenshot it. And then delete that person. Block that person from having contact with you, and then report it to a school official. Okay? That's why I'm telling you don't respond. Because once you respond, they screenshotted it too. Say they're in this room, they screenshotted it too. Both of you go to the official, you look like you just made something up. Okay? Steps. Screenshot it. Block them. Move on and talk to someone about it. Okay? Do not tolerate it. Do not tolerate bullying. And we're going to talk about when bullying happens in the church too. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, so if the school doesn't do anything, go to the district. The district is like the boss of the school. Okay? You don't stop until something gets done. That's called advocating for yourself. Okay? Advocating means you're looking out for yourself. Yes? Who cares? This is your self-esteem. This is your life. This is your well-being. You're going to let all these other people dictate how you feel? Yeah, and you snitch, and they're going to stop it. There are funds, actually, out there to stop bullying. And so if you don't do anything, you're going to keep getting bullied, right? If you do something, you're going to keep getting bullied, but at least you did something about it, and that's more likely to stop over time. Because the school is going to say, we're not going to tolerate this. This is not okay. Does that make sense? And we're going to talk about how to deal with bullies, so you're not going to feel totally helpless, like, oh my gosh, I have nothing to do. How can I deal with a bully? We just talked about this a whole lot, right? And I think this is going to be the last thing that we discuss before we take a break. Why do people bully, and how do I deal with a bully were the two most popular questions that I got. Are you guys eager to find out? Not really. No? This girl is honest. She said no. I appreciate the honesty. So what not to do? We're going to talk about what not to do, and then we're going to talk about what to do. Don't think it's your fault. Don't think that you're getting bullied because it's your fault. True, you might have some risk factors, but it's not your fault. It's this other person's fault, and they need to take responsibility. When someone is bullying, they ultimately need to take responsibility. That means admit it. Say, yeah, I called that person a loser. Not like, I didn't do it. He started it. No, that's not it. No one deserves to be bullied. It's never okay to be bullied. And that's why I encourage you to speak up. Do not fight back or bully that person back. Again, do not fight back or bully that person back. What's going to happen? If you fight back, now you're a bully. And now you're part of the problem. So you want to avoid the problem. You don't want to be part of the problem. Yeah, you can go away. Or, again, that's on the next slide. Do not keep it to yourself. I think I emphasized get someone to help you and advocate for you. Don't keep it to yourself and just hope that the bully will go away. That's not going to happen. And make sure you report the bullying. Do not skip school or avoid school or after-school activities where the bully might be just because you're afraid of them. They're going to see you as weak. Go in like a boss and go take care of whatever you need to take care of. The bully will find someone else to pick on or realize, hey, I'm just a terrible person and I need to stop bullying and get my life together. Don't be afraid to tell. Telling is not tattling. It's the right thing to do. Again, you feel like if you tell, the bullying is going to keep happening, but it eventually will stop. And these people just need to get lives, honestly. Lives as in, like, find something else to do. Bullying is not the answer. What not to do? Do not hurt yourself. Don't think that cutting is okay. Know that the hopelessness will be resolved. You will find something to be hopeful about. And yeah, bullying is painful. I'm not going to say, oh, come on, you can deal with it. No, bullying can hurt. It can be really terrible. But nothing is ever that bad for you to feel like you should hurt yourself or take your life. It's just not worth it. And so what can I do? Number one, plan ahead. We're also going to talk about this slide specifically at the very end, so if it's too much information and you feel overwhelmed, no problem, we're going to review this later. So what can you do? Again, plan ahead. Feel good about yourself and in control of your emotions. Don't fight back to the bully. Just go with it. I mean, not go with it, accept it. Just, you could either walk away again, be brave, or be assertive. Calmly tell the bully, hey, that's not okay. So if you decided you want to start bullying me, hey, that's not okay. That's not okay. And you will not tolerate it. I'm not going to, Oh, yeah, that's true. If a bully hangs out in the quad, avoid the quad and go around. You don't have to go be a target to the bully like, hey, I'm right here. No, play it cool, lay low. It is, Be smart, yeah. It is okay to ignore the bully. It's not okay to bully back. I know it's tempting, but she said this, and I really want to get at her, and I want to start a fight. Why? So you can get arrested? That's not smart. Again, if it happens online, don't respond, screenshot, talk to school officials, and tell an adult, either teacher, principal, staff at school, Sunday school servant, or finally, you can seek counseling, and I'm going to talk about how you can seek counseling if that's an option that you want. And I'm going to close with this slide because it's going to transition us into self-esteem. Being the repetitive target of bullying damages your ability to view yourself as desirable, capable, effective individual. What does that mean? I want you to look at desirable, capable, and effective, and we're going to talk about that when we address self-esteem. We're going to break now. If you have any questions, please write them down. We have access to papers. I want you to write down questions that you have. Again, many of the questions that you asked were addressed here. We're going to move on to self-esteem. If I didn't get to your self-esteem questions, know that we have another presentation on that, and we'll address some questions then. Enjoy your break. One moment.